up? What up? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited. We are excited with the DEI-Alliance to have my cousin here today, Reverend Michelle D. Williams, and author of the Diversity Playbook. Michelle, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. It's good to be here with you, Brian.
Yeah, excited about it. Excited about it. So, obviously, you being my cousin, I'm really biased to how amazing you are. But let's talk about a little bit about you and your journey. This book is coming out November 2nd. Is that correct?
Correct. Next Tuesday.
Yeah, November 2nd is the launch. So you can pre order it on Amazon. And we talk a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion with this alliance. And we're aligned with all these different coaches from different walks and different backgrounds. So, how did you kind of get into the space of
Yeah.
to write a book like this? How did you get into diversity, equity, inclusion space? And what's your educational kind of background to lead to all this stuff?
Sure. Well, I my education background, I have a bachelor's in psychology. So I came out of college working as a social worker, working with different populations. I did some work with family and children. I did some work in Tulsa with Big Brothers and Sisters. And I just started seeing the disparities, the poverty disparities, and how those disparities kind of um, go along racial lines. And I thought, what's going on here? And I decided to go back and get my master's. For me, I wanted to kind of ground my work in faith. So I went to a seminary. And actually, on that campus, the graduate seminaries across the valley from the undergrad side of the house. So one day I was walking across the valley after finishing some classes and going to the parking lot and met up with someone who stopped me and said, "Hey, are you Michelle?" And I'm thinking, yeah. And it turns out that they had an opening for a director of multicultural student services at this private Christian school in Indiana. And so I went through the process, and now my background was social work and ministry. So I didn't have any intercultural communications. So no background in what you would consider diversity, equity, or inclusion, right? I was
Right,
just Black.
right,
Um,
right.
but the social work background really helped when I got into it because I was able to use some of those skill sets of listening, of
Right.
empathy, of relating well to other people in diverse situation and in situations of crisis, right? So I served as a multicultural student services director at that institution for about 3 years and then was promoted to the director of the Cultural Resource Center on campus. So I oversaw all of the cultural programming and our international students, our multicultural students. And I did that for about 7 years and then went into a student affairs position, which is an assistant dean of students, where I worked even more with we would call them majority culture students, right? So
Right,
I still
right,
had all these hats. I was still the director of multicultural student services, the director of cultural resource center, and an assistant dean. But I brought in my influence, right?
right,
So I wasn't just coming into the room talking about diversity and how can we all get along. Now I was leading leadership development with SGA, right? And throwing in how can we all get along, right?
right, right,
And making sure that when I walked into the space, they knew that I was still that diversity professional, but um, that this person who happened to embody a Black skin and be a female is now in a leadership position with student government. And so it helped me, it helped them to see a person of color in that position. I then went on to be a dean of students at a seminary in the Boston area. And so, again, opportunity to model what excellence looks like in
right,
Black skin
right,
and bring this whole notion of equity and inclusion to the table, so that all voices are heard, no matter what they look like, no
Right.
matter how much money they have.
Right.
And that's important when you get into higher education worlds and you start sitting at different tables, at board tables. Things like um, the wealth gap matter.
Right.
Like, you only want people on your board who have a certain amount of money, and those people look the same and are the same age. And
Right.
after a while, you have limited perspective because you don't bring in different voices. So that's kind of how I got in the field. I've been doing it now for about 16 years, loving every minute of it, hating some of the minutes of it. That's truth.
Right. Right.
It's like, and being disappointed, the whole gamut of emotions, right? Having those high highs and those low lows. But I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, that's a definitely diverse background even within the space. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. And now, Brian, I'm doing consulting. So I work with some of those higher ed institutions
right.
that I worked at now, and I'm working with some nonprofits, and um, yeah, talking about diversity from an organizational perspective, and throwing in those stories, experiences that I had in my roles, and what I
Right.
heard my students say. So.
Right, right. No, I love the diversity in roles, right? So we have this in college athletics or college coaching. If you've kind of worked your way up the totem pole and had administrative positions, recruiting positions, coach offense, coach defense, then you become a head coach. Well, now you have this diversified
Yeah.
experience that has shaped you. So yours sounds like it's very similar, and now you're almost to
Mhm.
the AD level and consult level to where
Mhm.
you've been at those other spots so you can relate, which I
Mhm.
think is really important. What would you kind of say is some of the things that you picked up along the way having those different spots? And then
Mhm.
what do you think is this two-part question? What do you think about the current kind of state of when you deal with or you interact with administrators at higher education?
Mhm.
What's some of the biggest things that they're wanting to get your expertise on? Because for most people, this is such a topic that they don't know
Sure.
a lot about, and it's kind of
Yep.
it's a new wave of positions that are being filled and positions that are being
Mhm.
created. So, what would you say? I know that's two-part question. What would you say you got from those different positions you had, and then also, what would you say is kind of one of the some of the bigger things that schools and people are asking you to come in
Yeah.
with?
Great questions. I One of the things I definitely picked up was the need to be self-aware.
Mm,
Like, I needed to, in all of those roles, know where my level of competency was, right?
mm.
Somebody's asking me a question, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to have this answer, but I know someone who does, right? And
Right,
if you ask me in 2 weeks, I'm going to have that answer, right?
right,
So, figuring out how I where I stood in the moment, how self aware I was. Like, am I comfortable in my own skin?
right,
And um, where are my knowledge gaps? Like, where are those spaces where I need to refer out to someone? And to this day, I'm still asking those questions. Like, where are my knowledge gaps?
right,
Because the last thing you want to do is walk to a space where somebody's paying you to be the subject matter expert, right?
right, right, right,
And you don't have the answers. But I think some of the most humanizing moments of my life have been to recognize that in that moment I don't have the answer, but I know who does, right? And
right,
so being able to say, you know what, let me get back with you. And while I'm getting back with you, that person down the street really wrote a book on this. So, making sure I have resources
right,
in my back pocket when I because I don't know everything. When I'm
right,
asked a question that stumps me, that's been huge. So being self-aware. Um, the second thing I would say to your what I've learned along the way is I need other people. Like, I've got to have It goes back to the self-aware and being able to refer people and resources. I've got to
Right.
have a network of folks to be able to support me. Number one, support me
Right.
in this role. Number two, be able to call on them when I don't know the answers, right?
Right.
So, the community is huge. That, having that support network and being self-aware, I think those are two of the big ones. So for the second part of your question, in terms
Yeah.
of consulting now, I I would say I use those two things that I learned in the consulting space for sure. But the things that people are asking are about statements, are
Mm,
about how do we show our people that we care,
mm,
that we see them, that we hear them, that we understand them. How do we move this beyond performative allyship or making a statement, on our website? How
right.
do I actualize diversity, equity, and inclusion in my space? And how can I measure that? Right? It's
Right.
so it feels untangible.
Right.
But there's so many tools out there now that are being developed. We have a model that we developed in the book just to help people measure outcomes, in terms of diversity. How far is our climate welcoming? Is, what can we do to make our organization a more welcoming and inclusive space?
Right. Good. What would you say if you had to say maybe one answer or give a little bit from the book?
Hmm.
What is one of those ways that you can tangibly show it in, let's say, an
Hmm.
athletic department? Let's say
Hmm.
not so much a campus, but in the athletic department, how can you show that, and then how can you measure that? If you had to give,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm putting you on the spot. I know.
No, it's good stuff. This is a phrase that I use in training. It's a quote from theorist Jean Baker Miller. She says, "People want to feel seen, heard, and
Mm,
understood."
mm. Say that again.
People want to feel seen, heard, and understood. So, my question to organizations are, how can you demonstrate to your employees that you hear them?
Mm,
How can you, as a coach, demonstrate to your players that you understand them, that you see them? So, what are some of the tangible ways? Well, let's make sure that there's a feedback mechanism and that it can be anonymous. But let's make sure that that player knows they have access to that coach
mm.
in a variety of different ways.
Right.
Let's make sure that there's some public affirmation when people
Mm,
do things well.
right.
uh, those tangible things that make people feel like they're valued,
Right.
and they go such a long way. So that's kind of one of there's a lot of other good things in the book, but people will have to get the book to.
For sure. For sure. Can't give away all of it. Can't give away
Right.
all of it. Now you did say, we'll get into the book a little bit. You did say that at some points in time you do need that person down the street who wrote a book. Well, you wrote a book.
Right.
You and you're a co-author with your other author who
Yes, her name is Dr. Michelle Lloyd Page. So we're two Michelles,
yeah.
and that can be a little confusing in the book. So we try to we try to tell you which Michelle is talking.
So tell me, what is it like now that you've written the book? What was the process like? And then
Mhm.
what did you get from it as you were kind of going in this deep dive in diversity and giving the playbook to others? What did you kind of
Mhm.
take away in the process?
Oh man, the process was amazing. I will have to say, Michelle and I have been friends for years. We met at a conference, and instantly it was a connection. We're like-minded, and she was talking about. Um, she was saying something, and I thought, oh, I need to chat with this person after this meeting. And we connected, and over the years we'd be in the same circles, and we were in the same coaching network. We went to a multi-ethnic strategic alliance coaching
Nice.
network. Yeah, it was amazing. But it was a quarterly thing where we met and we kept getting together saying we need to write a book because our the things we're going through, our experiences, the challenges are very similar, and we were able to feed off of one another. The synergy was there. So, and it carried over through the book writing process. She would say something, and I'd be like, "Yes, oh, we've got it," So it was that type of process. And I'm really grateful because I've heard, different stories from other people who co-authored books of how difficult it was. But yeah, I wouldn't trade it. It was a blessing. And I'm
We
thinking about the other
got,
parts of your question.
we got a few quick shout outs that keep popping up. I think
I see that. Hello, family. Hello.
you know some of these people.
I know some of those people.
We get some quick family shout outs.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Okay, so keep going. What was the second part to the answer you were gonna say?
Okay. So you asked about what I've taken away from the process.
Yeah.
Everything that's worth something takes time and patience.
Mm,
Yeah. This has been a process of about 3 years in writing this book. And we thought when we were done writing it, it was over, but you learn something about the publishing world, and you learn through your rejections, right? It was like a rejection note. I'm thinking, what? And the process it takes to have the courage to get back out there and submit another manuscript to another publisher.
right.
Um, and then finding a publisher who starts critiquing your work, and you're thinking, wait a minute, you don't know anything about diversity, equity, inclusion, right?
Right. Right.
But they know publishing, right? So, that humility that comes with sucking it up, and at the end thinking, man, they were right. This is a much better book now because of the critique and hearing the constructive feedback. So, yeah, all of that. It's been such a learning experience, and it's taken much longer than we anticipate. But Tuesday's coming, right?
Tuesday's coming. Tuesday's coming. So again, people can get the book. I got the book on Amazon. I think I got it before you did, if I'm not mistaken.
You did. I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
that.
I've gotten a couple. Our whole Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance team all has books that have been.
Yay!
So yeah, we got everybody books. So we'll be reading and getting the playbook ourselves, so we can
Good.
to promote more good and connect to
Yeah.
more positive solutions for diversity in our workplaces. So what's if you had to pick two nuggets from the book that you would want people to share before they actually buy the book themselves, what would they be? We got another shout out from our cousin Robin. What up, cuz?
Robin is my stylist. We have to thank her today and for
Yes,
the
I
rest
love
of the
it.
book tour.
I love it. I love it. That's a fitting role for her. I can see
Yeah,
that.
she's amazing. She's amazing. She does great work for anyone who is looking for a stylist.
Yes.
Gosh, takeaways. I feel like with the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd
Yeah.
and just these two pandemics that we're living in, right? We're living through the pandemic of COVID, and then this highlight on the racial disparities
Right.
that have come along with that. Um, it's time for people to take these things seriously.
Mm.
And this book gives you concrete nuggets and answers. I read a lot. And I'm biased, but I have to say there is no book on diversity that's going to tell you from three different perspectives. So the perspective of the diversity professional, the perspective of that person who's an ally or an outlier, they don't know quite where they fit in this conversation, or a co-conspirator, like they're in it.
Right.
And the perspective of the organization. And that's why we called it a playbook, because we feel
Yeah.
like we have these three different perspectives and three different audiences. much like there's players and coaches, or
Yeah.
much like there's, um, coaches or multiple positions on a team. Everybody
Right.
has their role to play. And the reason why we believe that diversity efforts fail is because everybody's not reading the same playbook. I mean,
Mm,
you have the organization over here reading these change management books, and you got the diversity professional just trying to get an IV drip because they're on the front lines.
right.
and, and this person in the middle who has no idea how to support. So I feel like the book um, gives everyone one playbook, so
Mm,
okay, as an organization, this is what I need to do. And that diversity professional knows what you know now, so there's accountability. um,
mm,
there's accountability, and everyone is reading the same playbook. So I
good.
feel like
Good.
that is what makes it unique and stand out. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So
good.
that's why, hey, if you're in any of those roles, or if you don't know, what role you should take in
Right.
advancing diversity, equity, inclusion within your team, or within your organization, it's a good place to start.
Yep, that makes sense. So the
Hmm.
playbook gives, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like suggestions and guidelines to
Hmm.
basically kind of steer you in this unknown place for most people when it comes to how to deal with it in their workplace. It's one
Hmm.
thing to feel like, well, I'm diverse or I'm different than this person and this person's different than me. But when you're trying to make everybody on one team, whether that's an
Hmm.
organization, a church, whatever the
Hmm.
case may be, an athletic department, a school, you do need that playbook and that guide to kind of steer everybody on the same page, because
Hmm.
one person's interpretation may be different than another. So that's really good. I love it. What are
Yeah.
you excited about the launch? What can people kind of look forward to, or what should
Mm.
people be continuing to tap into from yourself and the co-author, if there
Yeah.
is? It may just be as simple as buy the book and then
Yeah.
apply what you see. What would you say to people that are interested in the book, want to buy the book, gonna buy the book?
Hmm. Yeah. So definitely buy the book. And if it resonates with you, would love for you to leave a review on Amazon, or, wherever you purchased it from. Um, but also there are conversation starters in the book.
Right,
We understand and we know, Michelle and I, that diversity happens with you cannot do this work as a solo person. It happens within community. And so you have to have these conversations with one another. It's great to read it off in the corner by yourself, but you can't actualize
right,
it until you talk with someone about it. So we are developing a manual for
nice,
groups, to like, let's do a Bible study about this. It is intentionally Christian, but there are some crossovers that we know that are applicable for secular audiences.
right.
But yeah, we're easily going to develop a Bible study curriculum on it, and an organizational playbook or manual where you can just take it with your teams and, dive into those points that are relevant for you.
Yeah,
This so along with the manuals, we're also already have established a glow retreat. It's called Good Looking Out, and it's specifically for um, diversity professionals, and diversity professionals in a loose sense, right? You don't have to have
right,
diversity in your name to be a diversity
right.
professional, but those who are on the front lines doing the work. We have a retreat in May, where we're going to dive into, these are some from our experiences. These are some self-care tips. Here are some equipping things. This is a networking space. So really, self-care, equipping, and networking are going to be our focuses for that group in May. So that's
I
a
love it.
little bit about
Love
what's
it. I love
coming
it.
up next.
I love it.
We are available for conferences and speaking and consulting. Our heart is to help people reach their diversity goals.
Yeah,
We want organizations to succeed, because when organizations succeed, people succeed, and people are what matters. In
amen.
this work, it's about people.
No doubt. So we're not done yet, but how do people
Okay.
get in touch with you, or how do people find you? I don't want to give away something that I'm not supposed to, but what's the best way for them to kind of tap into you or to your co-author?
Sure. www.diversity/playbook.com. So it's not a slash, it's a dash. So it's
So www.
www.diversity-playbook.com.
Playbook. Gonna make this easy for them. You tell me if this is correct. Pulling at the bottom. Is that correct?
That's it.
All right. So you have the
That is it.
information there at the bottom. We're kind of getting near the close. I have one more kind of semi-serious question, and then we'll get to the fun, silly question. Uh, so you mentioned earlier kind of about the concept of board members and people that may be of the same class, the
Mm-hmm.
same background,
Mm-hmm.
probably same race, not very diverse group, but a lot of times, and we find this in athletics a lot, those people often can be the decision makers at the top.
Absolutely.
And so, I guess two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you suggest to those that are not at that level but know that they need to be hired by the people that are at that level? And then what would you suggest to those that are at that level that
Mm-hmm.
are so maybe used to, we hire what we're familiar with, we hire what we're comfortable with. So what would you say to that person who may not have that diverse network,
Mm-hmm.
or uh,
Sure.
kind of people that they can reach out to, because there's many positions in a athletic department. It's not just
Sure.
football coach or just a basketball coach. We're talking about the head coaches should reflect some diversity as well, whether that's
Absolutely.
there should be more females hired, there should be more minority. It should look more like
Mm-hmm.
the student athletes. So
Absolutely.
what would you say if you had suggestions on both sides, and then we'll get to the fun stuff?
Sure. Oh gosh. One of the things that really make a difference is making the business case for diversity. So what I mean by that is, if you are, an assistant head coach, and you're wanting to move up, and you want to be on that board level, pulling out the statistics, because there are a lot of them, about why diversity matters and how it makes organizations better. Because you have all these incredibly diverse perspectives, how it makes organizations more money. It does. There are significant studies done. I'm going to mess up the name. The McKinsey report has an incredible report that they just did on women in board seats, and they break down the business case, how it's in terms of innovation, those boards are more innovative, they're making more money, those organizations are making more money, and the supply chain is broadening. You're bringing more people around the table, and have access to more people. So I would say do your homework and make sure you can make a business case for why diversity matters. And we can be talking about um, LGBTQ diversity in every sphere, why it matters. So make that business case. And then if you are at that level, hear the business case. Um, Anyone at that level wants to know how they can make their organization better. So, do your own research. I hear people say, why should I take this seriously? Because we know the demographics in the United States are changing. That's a fact. It's a given fact, and it's the reason why people are retreating in fear. Um, but it is also the reason why we should embrace it. Why retreat in fear? Let's embrace it and figure out how we can all thrive together. So I would say, everyone do your research on why diversity matters and how it's going to benefit us as an organization outside of um, the moral, ethical, cases. Let's make a business case for it. And that means your budget projections, your supplier chains, and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
So now my last couple questions. One, what's the biggest thing for you you feel like that you're most proud of now that you've come to the other side? Because it's a championship moment, so we need to celebrate that first.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Second is coming, but in athletics and sports, it's all about winning championships, and helping impact young people for their life so they can continue to be champions, right? So this book will be impactful, but you've accomplished a championship yourself to be able to have that moment where it's like, I mean, the book is. I have it over there. I probably should go get it so I can hold it
Yeah,
up.
yes, you
But
should. So you can
I'm
hold it
gonna,
up.
I'm gonna do that in just a second. But while you answer this question, what are you most satisfied or proud of yourself? And then I'm gonna
Mhm.
ask you a funny story about family.
Okay. Um, I think I am most proud of the fact that I was able to step away from a role. I took a sabbatical, to write this book alongside Michelle Lloyd Page. Um, I'm most proud of the fact that I honored my boundaries, and I did not work full time while I wrote. For me, I needed to step away from doing diversity work to actually write about it. Um, I after the book was done being written and we're going through the process, I did start doing a lot of consulting, and that was fun. But I did take a year off, to travel, and to write, and it was the best thing that I ever could have done because, um, it, I rested. I was able to see the world. And it sparked more curiosity and more questions. So I'm grateful that I honor my own boundaries and I took some time off. Um, yeah, that's the one thing I'm grateful for, in the process, and just having an amazing co-author, and being able to do this labor of love with her. We're already dreaming up our second book. Can't give you the name of it, but we're excited about this journey together. And for me, that solidifies that this work happens in community, and
Mm,
you can't do it on your own.
yes, the best work. We're again coaching community, athletic community. We know we definitely need each other. We thrive in that teamwork environment. I love that. And quick insight for those that don't know our journey, not that you're supposed to, but
Hmm.
it's funny. The same time we both were kind of going through this phase of
Hmm.
challenge. I moved to Indiana, and I was probably an hour from Dayton, not too
Yep.
far. And you were in Dayton,
Hmm.
and we got to spend Thanksgiving there with the whole
Oh,
family on that
so
side.
fun.
Yeah, it was a blast, and it's just awesome. I want to take a second to celebrate you because I know during that time it probably felt a little bit dark and not as light as it is now. It's
Hmm.
amazing to see you glowing again.
Hmm.
But just in life, we all have those challenges that
Hmm.
adversity is going to strike, and you really probably had to go outside of the box to do what you're doing now. And you did take that time for yourself, and you did
Hmm.
take that time away, and look at what it's developed into. So,
Hmm.
and I'm blessed to say, at the same time, shortly after you did, and you were in that space, I took a page from your book and did the same
That's
kind of
good,
thing last
Brian.
year. And next thing you
Yes.
know, here we are. We're both
Yes.
celebrating new life. So here is the book. This
Woohoo!
is the playbook itself, live in the flesh. You see it.
Hmm.
Awesome, awesome stuff. It is a easy read. I've already started reading into it. I love the kind of outline question, kind of gives you some things to think about as you're going through it. Very well organized, easy read, and yeah, I think people are gonna love it. So I'm excited for the release on the second, and then lastly, you got to end with a funny story. It can be family.
Funny
It can
story.
be you can be writing this book. It can be if you have one on me, feel free. You got open reign. If you have one on that's chimed in too, you can get them too.
Well, you know what? I don't know if it's funny. It is a great memory of you, though.
Be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
careful what you
Um,
ask.
we came to Thanksgiving at you all's house. Um, and your mom made oyster dressing. I'll never forget. It was the
Okay,
first time I had oyster
okay.
dressing. And you guys are running around like so. I'm the oldest female cousin.
Yes.
Um, and so the guys are running around. They were doing their thing, and Brian has always been this charismatic person, right? Yes, Aunt Cherry and her oyster dressing. I just saw her shout
Yes.
out.
Yes.
Um, so just loud, and I was like, leave me alone, go away. But your dad came out, and I have a picture of he was doing something. He was like, he's messing with you. I was like, yes. So he grabbed you and put him on his,
That sounds
put you
right.
on his shoulder,
That sounds right.
and start tickling you or something like that. I mean, it was just one of those great memories of family being together. And I thought, oh, I could always count on my Uncle Kirby. He had my back.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad he was tickling. I don't know if I remember that part. I remember more spankings than tickling.
Well, you know what? I don't think he was tickling you. I think it was just one of those. He had you up here, and he was kind of. You're
He
like,
was coming to the,
let
he
me
was coming
know.
he was coming to the rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
so happy. Thanks for joining us today. Again, you can get the book on Amazon. You can go to
Mhm.
the website. It's at the bottom scroll. If you're on Twitter, you can follow Michelle. We have the Twitter in the title here, and you can find this on YouTube as well. We'll also be on Spotify and Apple Music here pretty soon. So you'll get that release probably in the next
Yes.
couple weeks. So you can replay this and share it. And yeah, we got a couple more shout outs because
Woohoo. Hi, family.
so yeah, any last words for you as we close, and then we'll
You
close it
know
out.
what? I'm just really ditto. I'm proud of you, cousin. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
DEI is not an easy space to be in, but the coaching space, and you're learning the DEI stuff, and I'm sure you guys are gonna thrive because I know you, and whatever you put your hands to succeeds.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We are honored to have an expert here today, an author. We do have the book, so we will be putting the playbook in play and we'll be sharing it with as many people as we can and keep up the great work. It's not easy work, but it's needed work. And I love the
It's
quote you
needed
said
work.
earlier.
Yes,
People want to feel seen, heard, and understood. So
and
if
understood.
you don't get anything else from this, understand how important that is. So love you,
Yeah.
cuz.
Love you
Excited
too.
for our launch on the second.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.